Oh no, that's not what you want. The Hornets lose big to the Miami Heat. Apparently some old habits die hard, but Kon Knueppel keeps on keeping on. We'll open up the autopsy report, my notebook, today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
Welcome into Locked On Hornets. I'm Doug Branson. You can find my work on everyhornetsboxscore.com. I also produce Yahoo Sports Daily. I help to produce it. A whole team behind Yahoo Sports Daily every day on Yahoo Sports. Check that out. I'm usually joined by Walker Mail of the Wes and Walker Show, but he's doing the post-game show tonight on WFNZ, and I'm doing the post-game show here on Locked On Hornets, hanging out with you on a Tuesday night in which the Hornets drop a big one, 144-117, the final score. They almost gave up a $150 to the Miami Heat, who had been playing well offensively, despite the fact that they didn't have Tyler Hero, and in spite of the fact that they didn't have Norman Powell, who's been a big part of why the Miami Heat have been playing well offensively. No Norman Powell for this game. He was a late scratch. But the Hornets really could not stop anyone. Andrew Wiggins, 21. Bam Adebayo, 26. Jaime Jaquez Jr., the big story for Miami, 28 points off the bench. But the Hornets' offense slowed down by their first real test defensively. We'll get into that. Kon Knueppel was a bright light in an otherwise pretty pathetic showing from the Charlotte Hornets. We'll talk about him a little bit later in the show. But the big story is the Hornets, they did have their first big defensive test. They did play Philadelphia, but no Paul George. Joel Embiid was on a minutes restriction. Tyrese Maxey, you got the full Tyrese Maxey experience, and they played some physical defense too. But the Hornets were able to put up a lot of points. In this one, it was much more of a struggle, and a lot of that 117, I think, came really after this game was decided, although they did put up some good first half numbers. It's just the Miami Heat were allowed to put up much better numbers. They were able to shoot really whatever they wanted from the three-point line. They made 23s, Miami did, in this game, and a lot of that due to short closeouts, the defense not being able to get set because they were giving up transition looks. A lot of those transition looks, it was a little bit, we're slow getting back on defense, end of a 3-game road trip sort of situation. There were a lot of bad shots that Miami was more than happy to take into transition for 3-point opportunities, particularly in those bench units with Jaime Jaquez Jr. I just think they were more physical, faster, and just more ready to go in this game than the Charlotte Hornets were. But anytime you win big or you lose big, I think the natural inclination is to look at the best player on the team and say to yourself, did they go as that player went? And tonight, I think the answer is yes. LaMelo Ball scores 20 points, but on 6 of 18 shooting in 28 minutes of play, 33% from the field, 4 of 12 from 3, did have 9 assists, but also had 5 turnovers. Did have 8 rebounds, 1 steal as well. 4 personal fouls. This felt like a game that he was going to foul out of, and maybe he would have had he been allowed to play more in this game. But his frustration at not getting foul calls was a big story in this game, bubbling over to a final call that went against him, a charge call, and LaMelo Ball, he flashed some kind of hand signal at the referee. I didn't do the Zapruder film. I didn't take the microscope to the FanDuel Sports Network feed. But all I know is that he got called for the charge, hand went up towards the official who was walking away, and the official across the court who was looking in LaMelo Ball's direction calls a technical foul. And I was watching the home broadcast, so they didn't make a big deal of it other than the fact that LaMelo Ball, Del Curry made reference to LaMelo Ball's frustration and even said Charles Lee should get him off the court at this point because the frustration was bubbling over. So we'll wait to see if a fine is incoming for LaMelo Ball. But I said in the cold open, like, this was a case of old habits dying hard. This LaMelo Ball performance where we saw frustrations at not getting foul calls, which led to transition buckets on the other end, which led to one moment early in the game when Charles Lee called a timeout on, I believe it was a Jaquez bucket, just a completely uncontested transition look. Charles Lee calls timeout, very aggressively calls timeout, and then hops out onto the floor, eyes bug out. He was looking for someone to yell at, looking for someone to do battle with at that moment. And I don't even know if he said anything to anyone, but he said it all with his eyeballs. Like, if you're anyone on the Charlotte Hornets, you knew, oh, Dad's mad. Dad is totally mad right now. We all need to just go to our room, not say anything, just let Dad cool off for a minute, let him pick up the clipboard, draw some squiggle lines on there, and try to regroup this thing. But they never were able to regroup. And this comes on the heels of a comeback against the Washington Wizards, in which LaMelo Ball was lauded by his teammate Miles Bridges for his leadership in the locker room. And I think there have been mentions all across the beginning of this season for the Charlotte Hornets, very early in the season. But there have been mentions about LaMelo Ball's growing maturity level, the effort that he was giving on the defensive end of the floor. And I think all of those are valid examinations, valid analysis of those first three games. It's just in this one, all of that took a step back, or at least what was on the floor. Don't know what was said at halftime. Maybe we'll get some insights into that after this game. But in terms of what we saw on the floor, it was just very reminiscent of some of the frustrations that he had last season that led to him fouling out of games, that led to a Brooklyn Nets game last season in which he was pulled by Charles Lee. I think a valid criticism of Charles Lee in this game is that LaMelo Ball was held out a little too long between the end of the first quarter and the beginning of the second quarter. Things started to slip a little bit for the Hornets, and I think they could have used LaMelo there, and I think LaMelo might have found a little bit of a rhythm in the game, but perhaps Charles Lee sensed something in LaMelo Ball from the early goings in this game that the frustrations were starting to get to him. And look, he had a legitimate gripe. There's no doubt about it. He had a legitimate gripe. There were plenty of drives that he had in this game where he was clearly bumped. But the fact of the NBA is that you're going to get different crews, different nights, and they're going to call the game differently. And I think the best players in this league recognize, I would group the best players in the league in two categories. There are some best players in the league that do gripe with the officials all the time, but they're so overwhelmingly talented that if they give up a transition bucket on one possession, they'll equal it out, or more than equal it out, with three incredible plays, or just consistency of play across the quarters. And then there are another group of players that don't gripe with the officials as much and just sort of understand, all right, if that's how the game's going to be played, I'm going to now adjust my game accordingly. And I think the adjustment for LaMelo Ball, particularly in the third quarter, was just taking a lot of ill-advised step-back three-point shots, because once he gets frustrated with not being able to get into the paint and get the calls that he wants, he tends to move back to the three-point line and take a lot of it on himself, particularly if they're down 6, then down 8, then down 11. He starts to, I think the pinnacle of that in this game was the 16 seconds left on the shot clock, drunken master three-point shot that he tried to pull ISO, and it goes short. And one of those missed three-point attempts ends up as a transition bucket on the other end, because when he does that, when four guys are down close to the basket and he's ISOing and there's 16 seconds left on the shot clock and it's in the middle of the quarter, Like those possessions typically reserved for the end of the game where that can't hurt you, but it hurt them in this particular instance. But the bigger point, and one that I'm sure Lee has hammered over and over to not only LaMelo Ball, but all of these guys, is that the game is different. The game is faster. Everybody's pushing, particularly the Miami Heat. They love to get out into transition, and I'm sure they went over that in the scouting report. And if you gripe to the officials, you're going to get 4-on-3 situations. You're going to get 5-on-4 situations. And that was just advantage Miami in this game. But this game was not solely about LaMelo Ball. There were not great performances from several Charlotte Hornets, both like players you would expect and players you wouldn't expect. Let's talk about that coming up on Locked On Hornets.
Bees everywhere!
One player that I'm not going to gripe too much about is Kon Knueppel, who continues to impress with, I would say, more than solid play. In fact, he led the Hornets in game score. We'll dive into his game as well coming up on Locked On Hornets. Today's episode of Locked On Hornets is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Unfortunately, Charlotte Hornets couldn't make that late push, although Charles Lee tried. He subbed in Kalkbrenner, he subbed in LaMelo late, he subbed in Miles. It's not as if they didn't try, but it just wasn't there for them tonight. Maybe it will be against the Orlando Magic in a few days. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. This episode of Locked On Hornets is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? Basketball season? It's here. I told you it's back. It's officially here. And nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games then you want to be there. I mean, it's way better than watching it on television. Let's just be frank about it. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Their zone deals are an absolute game changer. You can pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. You can even find NBA tickets for under $25. You got to check it out. Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Back here on Locked On Hornets. So the Hornets offense really facing their first real defensive test. I think they failed it pretty easily. All of those warts that we started to see some of those warts in the first three games. It's just, as I've said many times on this show, shooting covers a lot of sins. When you are getting 3-point contributions up and down your roster, it's going to cover up a lot of things that are going to cost you in a tighter game. And that's, look, the Miami Heat defense, it's still good, folks. It doesn't matter. They just find some random players off the street. They bring them into the Kaseya Center. They teach them how to play defense and teach them how to just stand at the elbows and cut off driving lanes. That's what they do. So all of those warts, like the turnovers that the Hornets have been having, the fouling issues that the Hornets have been having, the Tidjane Salaün issues that the Hornets have been having, and really it's less about Tidjane and more about some of the inexperience that has clogged up a little bit of the offense, particularly in some of those deeper bench units that they've been featuring. Those issues really came to the forefront in this game, and you got to tip your hat to Miami because they had a great shooting night too. I mean, yes, some of it was short closeouts. Yes, some of it was transition problems. but also some of it was just Pelle Larsson knocking down shots. The Hornets are going to give up Bam Adebayo threes. Like, there are going to be games they were willing to give up Joel Embiid threes. There are just going to be games because of how their center rotation is stacked. Like, Kalkbrenner is just not going to be able to stand out and guard Bam Adebayo at the three-point line. And he didn't have to early in the game because Miami stuck with their Khalil Ware, Bam Adebayo look, which allowed Bam Adebayo to be guarded by Miles Bridges. And I thought Kalkbrenner did a great job of challenging Khalil Ware at the rim. I thought he did a great job in the occasions in which he got Bam Adebayo close to the rim. I thought he did a good job there too. It's just they're going to give up that three-point look when he's on the floor, and Bam Adebayo, unfortunately, was just on tonight. Sometimes you're going to get Bam, what did he finish with? I mean, I know he was 3 of 4 at one point. Bam Adebayo in this game, 3 of 5 from 3. So they're going to give up 9 points to Bam Adebayo sometimes. But it really was. I mean, Pelle Larsson, 3 for 6. Khalil hit 2. Wiggins hit 3. Fontecchio crushed them, 3 of 4 for 10 points off the bench. Jovic hit 2 of them. So they were just getting sprayed. 20 of 45 for the Miami Heat. The only Heat player not to hit a 3 was Davion Mitchell. But the Hornets defense didn't do themselves any favors, and the offense didn't do themselves any favors either. I mean, talk about old habits. I mean, there were plenty of shots from Miles Bridges that looked very much like the Miles Bridges of last season. I think a lot of Hornets tried to drive. They tried to put their head down, and maybe only one of them was truly successful, and that was Colin Sexton, who was 7 of 11 from the field. I would add Kon in there. Kon not necessarily getting to the rim and finishing there, but he was able to at least keep his dribble alive long enough to kick out to the corner for a career-high 4 assists. But a lot of Hornets were driving, and they were either getting stripped or they were putting up wild shots. I mean, some of the shots that Miles Bridges put up at the rim just had zero shot of going in. And then again, he reverted back to, all right, I'm going to take this step-back three-point shot that just ugly, terrible, no good, don't want it ever again, saw it a lot last year, send it back. Like, those are the kind of shots that kill the Hornets, because not only are they missed opportunities, not only is it no ball movement, it's just easy transition opportunities for the opposing offense, and that's what you got here. Kalkbrenner, very efficient in this game, 5 of 5. I think the broadcast said he's like 18 of 20 to start the year, 10 points, 6 rebounds. But a lot of that was early. I mean, I think a lot of that was in the first half when they were moving the basketball a little bit better, particularly like LaMelo and running some high pick and roll stuff. And they just got completely away from that. And then some of that was Kalkbrenner, just like cleanup duty. Trey Mann, 3 of 15. Man, he is struggling to begin this year. Yes, he missed a considerable amount of last season. And so the broadcast was on this. I think a lot of people are on this, like, hey, Trey Mann has got to get the minutes, the reps to get back into rhythm. And that's great. And they don't really have, I mean, it's not like Josh Green is healthy, a healthy scratch. Brandon Miller's out. Brandon Miller would have soaked up. I think Liam McNeely got 11 minutes. Brandon takes those. But Trey Mann gets 26. Brandon probably takes 12 of those. More than that, maybe. Because Sion, I think you got to play Sion. Sion gets 23 minutes. I thought those were 23 good defensive minutes where he scores 8 points on 2 shot attempts. Like, those are great. Sion, great minutes because he's hitting his threes and he's playing defense. Like, you got to play that guy. I think Trey Mann would probably be getting maybe closer to 18, 17 minutes per game, and then Brandon Miller would soak up the rest. So some of this is Trey Mann, they have to play him. Some of this is he's got to get the reps to get back into a groove. And that's all you can hope, is that he gets back into a groove, or Josh Green gets healthy, or Brandon Miller gets healthy. We should touch on that too before we get to Kon Knueppel. We did get an update somewhat on Brandon Miller from Chris Haynes, who's reporting that Brandon Miller is seeking a second opinion on the left shoulder soreness, which they have upgraded to subluxation, a shoulder subluxation, which I believe is like a shoulder separation of some kind. I think they're waiting to get back to Charlotte to do further evaluations on it. I'll just say with the second opinion thing, I mean, you don't often go for a second opinion for like a worse diagnosis. Like you're like, hey, doc, this person told me I'd be fine. I would like you to now tell me that I'm not going to be fine. Brandon Miller wants to play. Like he's looked sour other than the Miles Bridges dunk from the last game that had everybody with funny faces. Like Brandon Miller looks like a guy that, hey, I missed a significant portion of last season. I cannot miss a significant portion of this season. He looks like that. He wants to play desperately. And I imagine that the second opinion is linked to that idea. Now, that could mean a range of things. That could mean that someone is telling him, hey, you're young. If we go ahead and do surgery now, your long-term prospects look a lot better. Maybe we can have you back at the end of the year, end of the season, And he's like, whoa. It's surgery. I can't. I got to get back out there for my guys. Or it could be, hey, you're going to be out for a month. And he's like, I don't know, even if out for a month, I feel pretty good. I think I can just like rehab this thing. Maybe take a few more games off and get back out there. There's a range of what all of this could mean. And I think we're going to find out in the next few days when they get back to Charlotte whoever gives that second opinion can give that second opinion. So that's all I've got on Brandon Miller. Obviously, I mean, you could just take this game and say it's good evidence that Brandon Miller is a huge loss because there will be nights when Miles Bridges is off. Having Brandon Miller, I think, takes some of the pressure off of, I don't even think, I know it just takes pressure off of LaMelo Ball. And maybe some of that pressure is linked to some of the frustration because LaMelo Ball knows, hey, we came back against the Washington Wizards, not a great team, and it took 38 points, 13 rebounds, 13 assists, and 3 steals. Now I know he wasn't focused on the triple-double, but it wouldn't be unfair to think or it wouldn't be unfair of him, honestly, to go, man, it took a lot out of me to get this team over the Washington Wizards. What am I going to have to do in order to get over the Miami Heat, a much better team? And that's where the pressure builds, and that's where, the frustration could build. So, Brandon Miller, he was leading the team in that win over the Brooklyn Nets. He was a big part of that win, I should say. And it would be a huge loss. And they're going to have to find out, can Kon Knueppel take some of that shot creation? Can Colin Sexton take some of that shot creation? Trey Mann playing a lot better would obviously help. I mean, that's where him, like the patience to let him kind of get his reps and get back in a rhythm, that's where it sort of hits up against the fact that, like, actually they kind of need him to play well now. That's the reality of the NBA. All right, coming up on Locked On Hornets.
Bees everywhere!
More on Kon Knueppel, player of the game in a loss where they gave up 144 points. I'll have comments on his offense, on his defense. We'll talk about the Rook, the 4th overall pick, coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Hornets is brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, I am. Here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams, and they simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's sad. Software is a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Everything from onboarding, payroll, IT access, it runs automatically and it runs perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use, and it gives companies, big or small, one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. Whether you run your entire HR, IT, finance operations as one, or you just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNBA for 6 months free. Today's episode of Locked On Hornets is also brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest here. Most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts. I can't, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch. My family uses Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. It helped my family organize all of our accounts. We track our spending with it. We get a better handle on our investments without having to touch a spreadsheet, and that's important because I was told there would be no math. That's why I podcast, folks. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Final segment of Locked On Hornets here. We're going to talk about Kon Knueppel. He kept on keeping on at 19 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, a career high in assists on 7 of 15 shooting and 5 made triples. Man, this guy, they told us, Del Curry, who knows a little something about shooting, told us this guy was an elite shooter. And I wanted to believe it. I did. I mean, I watched him on tape at Duke. I wanted to believe it. And the Summer League had me a little bit worried. There were a considerable number of missed shots, and he was doing a lot more with his pass, with his IQ. There were lots of things to be excited about in his Summer League performance. But I don't know that, like, elite shooting, I don't know that I would call what he did in Summer League elite in terms of his shooting. But boy, has he figured it out here in the big leagues, and he showcased some of it in the preseason as well. He is just, I mean, the relocations that he's doing, I keep saying it, they look so beautiful. The footwork, so compact, just knows exactly where he wants to be. Jeremy Lin, when he played for the Charlotte Hornets, he did an interview and he talked about how so much of this game of basketball is split seconds and inches. And really, like, when you watch Kon Knueppel and the way that he moves off ball to get to the corner, it is inches and split seconds that he's using to perfection, and to be in the right place at the right time opens him up for shots that he otherwise wouldn't get. And on top of that, he makes some of the toughies, which is one of those like check boxes that you make on future all-star, star player, third star, whatever his ceiling ends up being. He has to hit these things. You've got to hit these things. And one of those things is, can he make the toughies? And he's making some of the toughies here in the early going, and he's consistently providing them outside shooting that this team has desperately needed. And he finishes 19 points. I said that, but I love the 4 assists. I love how he kept his dribble alive amongst a very handsy Miami defense. He was one of the few guys that really passed that test, because, Colin Sexton, who also finished, he had 6 assists in this game. And, but he was straight line driving and had a mind to drive and get fouled or put shots up. But I thought Kon really moved the defense in a way that was exceptional, that we had seen LaMelo Ball do through the first 3 games. Kon sort of picked up that mantle in this game and was absolutely fantastic, and gives you a lot of reasons to hope. They've still got to find that megastar. Is it LaMelo Ball? Can Brandon stay healthy enough? Huge questions that the Hornets have to answer. and maybe it's a future trade at some point that provides them with that player. But I think one of the questions that they're quickly answering with Kon is, do they have the necessary auxiliary piece that you need to put around a star in order to actually have success in the playoffs? Because it's not good enough to have a transcendent player. Teams have transcendent players, and sometimes they miss the playoffs entirely if they're not healthy enough. And if they are healthy enough, they get into the playoffs and they get smacked in the first round. I mean, even a Milwaukee Bucks team that has Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the most prolific freak athletes and scorers of our time, if you don't put enough talent around that guy, they're not championship contenders. They're NBA Cup contenders, that's fine, but they're not championship contenders. Obviously, the Hornets are very far away from championship contention, but the Hornets found themselves in that last draft, one spot outside, I think, of the players that are going to be automatic stars and potential superstars. Like VJ Edgecombe has shown me enough. I think he's going to be automatic star, potentially superstar in this league. Cooper Flagg, same thing. Dylan Harper, can't be any higher on him. And he plays with a guy that's going to make it very easy to look that way. I mean, really, the only thing that might keep Dylan Harper down a little bit is the fact that he does play with Wemby, and Wemby's going to soak up so much of the oxygen. So the Hornets found themselves on the outside looking in to that group, and they had to make a call. And I think they made a call on a guy in Kon Knueppel that can be a difference maker in a playoff series, can be an all-star on a team packed with other all-stars. Like, he just has so many of the tools. He's so gifted. And he's just a lot of people that do talent evaluation now in the NBA with the speed of the game, which you've seen through these first 4 games with the Charlotte Hornets upping the pace. But you saw how effective Miami was with it tonight, right? So people who are talent evaluators now, they talk a lot about processing speed. How quickly can people process what's happening on a given possession and with a given set of possessions in an NBA basketball game? And man, I mean, Kon is so good at just dialing up where defenders are and what they want to do and what their tendencies are and how to exploit that to get by them, even though he's not the fastest. He's not the most athletic. But he has ball skills, man. He has handle skills. And he has a vision that is very unique in this league, and I think can take him, can really take him wherever he wants to go. And if if his shooting stays like this, man, that's, it has you dreaming. It has you wondering, hey, maybe were we a little bit too, did we build the ceiling a little too low? Was it a false ceiling? Do we need to go in, with sledgehammers, do a remodel of this Kon Knueppel home and bust out that false ceiling, put in 10-foot ceilings and maybe one of those like glass openings, right? I mean, what can this guy do if he's going to shoot like this from 3, pass the ball like he's doing? And by the way, 1 turnover, limiting the mistakes that we've seen him make. If he's going to, again, improve this quickly, if he's going to learn the NBA tendencies this quickly, man, it gets you excited, particularly if they can get Brandon Miller back and healthy, particularly if LaMelo Ball can shake this game off, rebound against Orlando, continue to, put together a resume that can shed some of this, media narrative that, look, in all honesty, he kind of earned tonight, and he's got to unearn it on Thursday. That's the NBA. You can take one game, you can throw it away, and if he has another huge triple-double performance in which he's limiting the mistakes, limiting the frustration, and maximizing his talent, you do that enough times, you can have these games where there's an off night. That's why there's 82 of these things. So hopefully they shake it off. Walker will be back with me tomorrow to help preview that game against the Orlando Magic. We'll get his observations and thoughts on this game. Until then, thanks for tuning in. Go Hornets. Go America. Check out every Hornets box score for my full write-up. Go Hornets. Let's swarm. Charlotte.